family turned to Raph in shock at what he just said. It can't be true. It can't be. He wouldn't. It had to be a lie. You what? Mikey said in shock. The red-masked turtle glared angrily at his little brother. I got rid of that doll, he yelled. That thing has been nothing but trouble around us. Mikey couldn't believe it. How could Raph get rid of Pinkie Pie? Does he not know he loved her? No, he didn't, and he didn't care. A fire inside of Mikey began to burn, and he was doing his best to not let his tears show. But he failed, as some had already begun and trickling down his cheeks. He stared at Raph with an angry gaze in his eyes, something that was never shown before. It was scary. But it didn't bother Raph a bit. How could you get rid of my sweet cupcake? Mikey yelled with an angry tone. Raph nearly choked from his water when he heard Mikey yell, and it was his first time he did. He didn't like it one bit when he sat up and glared right back at Mikey. It's just a stupid, lame doll. It's just rubbish, he growled. Not to me she isn't, she understood. And she understood me, unlike the rest of you, especially you, Raph, Mikey growled back. You never understood how I feel one bit. The orange-masked turtle stood up from the couch almost too quickly as his head began to pinch with pain, but he didn't care. Without Pinkie Pie in his arms, he couldn't control his temper or his anger. His anger was fueling the fire inside of him, and it grew hotter the more of seeing Raph not caring at all. My sweet cupcake was the only one who cared and truly understood me. He yelled. Raph glared at him with anger burning in his eyes before he stood up. It's just a stupid, lame, creepy doll that has no life, Mikey. It's been causing nothing but trouble to all of us, he shouted. Leo, Ollie, and Donnie had been suffering terrifying dreams ever since you brought that thing home. And not to mention, you've been distancing yourself from all of us. It's unhealthy and stupid. And you only want me around so you can keep beating me, saying why I'm your brother. Leo and Ollie can say I'm not a better ninja, and Donnie can continue berating me that I'm not a very good teammate. Kofu, and only Kofu is keeping me from going into depression. Your words hurt, and so do your actions, you hot-headed, arrogant, selfish, ruthless shell for brains. You can't even act like a leader. Mikey finally came to a pause to catch his breath. The others were in shock from Mikey's words. They didn't even know what to say. All he said was true. Raph's eyes turned red with anger before he angrily pushed Mikey to the ground. You're just completely useless and worthless. I don't even know why you're my brother, since I should have left you in the pet store. All you do is goof around, don't listen to orders, mess up a lot, and you're just a lonely, stupid, crybaby freak. That doll is a possessive rubbish toy that you don't need, so get over it! Crash! Red. Hatred. Anger. Monster Raph. So that's what those messages mean. So those messages meant, Mikey said quietly to himself. The stinging, hot pain on his cheek wasn't what bothered him. It wasn't the wounds that had formed and how deep the shards were in. It wasn't how his blood dripped down from his injury. No. What bothered him was that those messages were trying to tell him something. Something bad was going to happen, and it did. Then suddenly, flashes of memory started hitting like hammers pounding on the nails to get them to stay in the wood. The other messages were writing too. How strict and uptight his father, Leo, and Ollie were when training or out on patrol. How rude Donnie was when out on missions. How kind Kofu was when he was down or in tears. He should have known. Mikey? He sensed the hand gesture of Kofu reaching out for him. But then, instead of accepting it, in the blink of an eye, he had already ran out of the lair with no sound coming from him, not even a whimper. He didn't care about the pain spreading in his wounded cheek. All he cared about was escaping them. He didn't want to face them, not after the pain they caused for so long. He didn't want to see them again. Once outside of the sewers, he continued to run, not stopping for anything. Nobody, not even a car, was stirring, so he was lucky. He kept running, not even caring his feet were beginning to hurt from how much he ran. He just kept running until he ran out of breath, and he was lucky. He took shelter at an abandoned building hidden somewhere deep in an unknown part of the city. Once again, he finally caught his breath. He finally let out the pain he held in for so long. He let out the cries he had to hold back. He let out the tears that mixed with the blood as it dripped down to the ground. He finally let it all out. When he had no more breath to scream, he fell to the ground and held himself in tears. Without Pinkie Pie to comfort him, he was all alone. That was until he heard a sound. The familiar sound of cracking bones and crunching glass shards. But a new noise accompanied it. A soft sound of 4 on the floor going. It sounded like it was coming from one side of him. Mikey knew the sound, and fear was already crawling up his skin like spiders climbing all over him. He watched in the direction where the noises were coming from, too scared to run, too scared to scream. Then he saw them, the 2 red glowing eyes peering through the darkness, staring directly at him. The clip-clops soon came to a stop. It wasn't standing in the light, it just stayed in the shadows. But Mikey could clearly see the blurry white in the shadows, and its red glowing eyes were piercing through the black. Then something surprised him. Its horn on its head lit up brightly. A light yellow light pierced through the shadows to reveal its face. Its pure white face didn't even look like a skull, but a mouthless, empty socket, black-maned head of a winged unicorn. Mikey watched in awe before his baby blue eyes caught something all too familiar being levitated from behind the skeletal pony. "Pinkie Pie!" he cried out, reaching for the stuffed pink pony as it was magically levitated over to him. He hugged his most precious mare into his arms. But that's when he noticed something different about Pinkie Pie. She was no longer the size of a doll, but now as large as a normal pony. But the major change was her appearance. Her coat was dim of brightness, almost to a gray. Her dull pink mane and tail were no longer curly and bouncy, but straight and flat. Her cutie mark of 3 balloons were still there, but lost color. The only thing that hasn't changed were her bright cerulean eyes and her happy smile. What shocked Mikey the most was the tears falling down and dripping from her chin. He pulled her close to him into a hug as his tears and blood dripped to the ground. His baby blue eyes switched to the skeletal pony with grateful and smile before whispering 2 words. "Thank you." But when he said them, the skeletal pony had already vanished.